Topic introduces factor analysis, principal component analysis, PCA, and key rate approaches as advanced techniques for measuring and managing interest rate risk in fixed income portfolios. Interest rates across different maturities rarely move independently, making it important to identify the primary drivers influencing yield curve changes. Factor models simplify this complexity by representing interest rate movements through a smaller number of underlying variables or factors. Common factors include parallel shifts, steepening or flattening of the yield curve, and curvature changes. By identifying dominant risk drivers, institutions can better understand portfolio sensitivities, improve hedging effectiveness, and reduce exposure to unexpected movements in interest rate markets. The topic explains that principal component analysis is a statistical method used to identify the most significant sources of variation in yield curve movements. PCA transforms correlated interest rate changes into independent components ranked according to explanatory power. Empirical studies show that the first few principal components typically explain most yield curve variation. The first component generally represents parallel shifts, the second captures slope changes, and the third reflects curvature movements. Financial institutions use PCA to reduce dimensional complexity in interest rate modeling and risk management. This approach supports stress testing, portfolio optimization, and scenario analysis by focusing attention on the most influential interest rate risk factors. The topic also discusses key rate analysis, which measures sensitivity to changes in specific maturities along the yield curve rather than assuming uniform interest rate movements. Traditional duration measures often assume parallel shifts in yields, but actual market changes frequently affect different maturities unevenly. Key rate durations estimate how portfolio values respond to shifts at individual maturities such as 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, or 30-year rates. This framework provides a more detailed understanding of interest rate exposure and helps identify vulnerabilities concentrated in particular segments of the curve. Consequently, key rate analysis is widely used in portfolio management, hedging strategies, and asset liability risk assessment. Topic also focuses on key rate exposures and the techniques used to hedge them effectively. Fixed income portfolios may possess significant exposure to specific portions of the yield curve depending on bond maturities, coupon structures, and embedded options. Key rate hedging involves constructing offsetting positions that neutralize sensitivities at selected maturities while preserving desired portfolio characteristics. Treasury securities, futures contracts, swaps, and options are commonly used to manage these exposures. Unlike simple duration matching, key rate hedging recognizes that yield curve movements are often non-parallel and therefore require more targeted risk management approaches. This method allows institutions to achieve greater precision when controlling interest rate risk across multiple maturity sectors. The topic further emphasizes that effective hedging requires understanding how yield curve dynamics evolve under changing economic and market conditions. Central bank policy actions, inflation expectations, liquidity conditions, and macroeconomic developments may influence short-term and long-term rates differently. As a result, portfolios hedged against parallel shifts may still experience losses if curve steepening or flattening occurs unexpectedly. Key rate analysis enables institutions to evaluate how hedges perform under alternative yield curve scenarios and adjust strategies accordingly. By isolating sensitivities across maturities, risk managers gain greater flexibility in controlling exposures and improving the effectiveness of portfolio immunization and risk mitigation strategies. Topic also introduces forward buckets and volatility analysis as additional tools for understanding interest rate dynamics and derivative risk. Forward buckets divide the yield curve into maturity intervals and measure sensitivities to forward rate movements within those specific segments. This approach is particularly useful for pricing and hedging interest rate derivatives because forward rates reflect expectations regarding future short-term borrowing costs. Institutions analyze bucket exposures to identify concentrations of risk and evaluate how changing forward curves affect portfolio valuations. Forward bucket analysis supports more detailed stress testing and scenario analysis by capturing localized movements in future interest rate expectations. The topic also examines volatility as a critical component of interest rate risk management and derivative pricing. Interest rate volatility measures the degree of fluctuation in rates over time and significantly affects the value of options, swaps, and structured products. Volatility may vary across maturities and market environments, creating additional complexity in hedging and valuation. Financial institutions monitor implied and historical volatility measures to estimate future uncertainty and evaluate market sentiment. Volatility modeling is particularly important for portfolios containing nonlinear instruments because changes in volatility can materially alter pricing sensitivities and hedge effectiveness even without large movements in underlying interest rates. The topic concludes by emphasizing the importance of integrating factor analysis, key rate exposures, forward buckets, and volatility modeling into comprehensive fixed income risk management frameworks. Interest rate markets are influenced by multiple interconnected forces that generate complex and often non-parallel yield curve movements. Traditional duration measures alone may not adequately capture these dynamics. Advanced analytical tools provide more granular insights into portfolio sensitivities and support more effective hedging, stress testing, and strategic asset allocation decisions. By combining statistical modeling, yield curve decomposition, and volatility analysis, financial institutions improve their ability to manage interest rate risk and enhance resilience under changing macroeconomic and market conditions.